there's a fine line between kind of like compensating and boasting about your problems, right? And at the same time, just sincerely sharing about it and kind of like not trying to be narcissistic about it, because there is that fine line, I believe.
Creative Conversations.
Hey Zouk family, welcome back. As we creep past our 100th episode of Creative Conversations, as you know, the tagline is be inspired, and it's virtually impossible not to be inspired by this man. Zhariff, who was introduced to us to our good friend Adam Matthews, has one of the most inspirational stories that I've had the fortune of reading about in the last year. Life coach, motivational speaker, avid sportsman, and literally a man who can give us the motto that anything is possible if you put your mind to it. First and foremost, Zhariff, thanks for joining us, and how are you?
I'm good, Joe. How you doing, mate?
I'm not bad, as we just lug in for another 2 weeks of lockdown. It's easy to get frustrated and down about this, but I'm sure chatting to you will find ways to look at the positives. I know you're gagging to tell everyone that's watching this that you're a big Zouk fan and it's played a part in your upbringing, so I'll let you lead with that.
Yeah, I was just going to say earlier, before the whole official introduction and thing, that I grew up with Zouk. I guess that's the crazy bit, you know, coming from, I was born in 81, which you can do the math of how old I am, and living in KL, and, you know, loving music. I think I was music's always been a big thing for me. If I can even just show you, 1 second, here, if I can just show you what's going on here. So I've got my, right, so I do music as well these days as well, but Zouk was a part of that journey as well. It was one of the places I frequented, I guess, because it had great music, of course. And so yeah, this is kind of really cool actually to be interviewed by a Zouk kind of thing on Majigo, right? And I've had many experiences growing up, different things, you know, different raves and parties and events, and really cool. Like, one of my favorite things back then was we had this thing with Salem. They had these sessions where they'd bring in artists, different artists of different genres, of different types, whether it was visual artists, whether it was music artists, whether it was just different types, right? And we had a chance to like listen from them, right, in a nice live environment. And they'd kind of like do their thing, and we'd get to experience it. And, you know, then, so yeah, big up to that actually. And so it's pretty nice that you guys are putting this together. And also big thank you to my homie Adam, of course. He's just amazing. He was also there in those journeys of, well, you know, most not entirely sober, but good times, definitely good times.
Well, we're glad that you collected some amazing memories along the way. Of course, Zouk has been in this country for nearly 2 decades, and Adam was one of the founding fathers, if you will. So it's good to go full circle. Zhariff, for those of our followers that will be watching from Las Vegas and Hong Kong and Singapore that might not be as acquainted with you as I am and as we are in Malaysia, because you are a very prominent inspiration here in Malaysia, can you give us a brief background on yourself and the struggles you've been through in life, but also how you've come out on top?
Well, first things first, I guess at the moment, as you kind of like introduced me, what I do, I'm also working for UNICEF Malaysia as well. Actually, I'm a consultant there. I'm designing a program there for them. Actually, I'm also an author as well. I wrote a book. All right, and so it's called SOS, and so it's a book on personal growth and development, basically. So that's something that I've been into, and I studied in university as well. I studied psychology back in uni in Australia, in Griffith University. As you can probably see, the other thing is I don't have arms in that sense. So that's one of the things, I guess. I don't want it to really define me, or I never allowed it to define me per se. But at the same time, I can't deny, you know, it's the most obvious thing when people see me, right? And I've had to live with the limitations or overcoming the limitations of not having arms in that sense as well. Meaning, from wanting to like switch on the lights to wearing clothes to now handling things like cameras and music equipments and things like that, which I like to do on the side as well. They're all designed for hands and arms, I guess, right? In that sense, the usage of hands. And so I've had to overcome that part. But I think in my lifetime, I've had the opportunities and insane stories. I know like we can skin this cat different ways. I can tell you from how I was from young till now, right? But at the same time, I think it's kind of cool to see, like reflecting back on things. I've had the opportunities. As I said, I managed to write a book, which was a big thing for me a couple of years ago. It was like a big bucket list of mine. And that's kind of been the theme of my life in that sense, where I've had, I guess people call it bucket list. I just kind of look at things I want to do in my life, right? Because for me, from a very young age, I guess I've always believed that I or anyone else, for that matter of fact, should have that ability or has that capacity or capability to live their best life or grow the best that they can, and kind of like try whatever they want. If you want to try something, just do it, right? And then don't allow anyone who says you can't, because that's what I had to go through a lot in my lifetime. Of course, when growing up, people say I can't. Like I wanted to do scuba diving. A lot of people were a little bit hesitant when I was like 13. But at the end, I managed to get my scuba diving license, and I've been scuba diving ever since. Same thing with like things like bodyboarding right now. So I bodyboard, and that's something usually people wonder, how the hell do you bodyboard or surf? And so I've managed. What I do essentially is I figure out how to do things my own way, because everyone's got their own kind of ways to do things, I guess, right? And so I've figured out my own way to do things, to live life. And that's so far worked tremendously well, I think. I've got a great job, alhamdulillah, in that sense, right? I've had a great experience. I have a family as well, daughter, in a sense, so life has been good, regardless of the situation or the cards that has been handed, right? So that's kind of like what I've had to go through as well.
Can I ask you a question, Zhariff? So you've managed to make the most out of whatever cards you've been dealt, which is a phenomenal achievement, because I can't imagine being in your shoes. I think I would find it mentally, monumentally difficult. And we're talking about a time in our lifetimes, this whole COVID situation, which is I was born just 2 years after you. So I would say, yes, there was the presence of SARS and poxes. But this is the first time that the world has been put on hold because of such a spread of a pandemic. And many people have had to adjust from even things such as the pleasures of being able to go on holiday or go away for the weekend or go and play soccer with their friends or whatever it was, all the way down to being able to leave the home. In your journey so far, how did you muster the mental strength, or what methods did you use to combat frustrations that were put in front of you with those you can't or you won't situations?
Yeah, I mean, right now there's obviously a lot that we can't do, and that we're not allowed to do or not able to do right now due to circumstances, of course, right? But that really depends on how you want to look at it, of course. And I can't deny it sucks, right? Not being able to go out and just kind of go to some basic thing like going for my swimming pool, right? Or mainly like going to the islands that I love, for instance, right? But at the same time, I guess it's also an opportunity as well to build yourself. You kind of see it where, okay, in some circumstances it's bad, but I had a situation the first part of last year was really hard. I think I had physical and emotional, I guess it affected me physically and emotionally as well. And my knees started feeling bad. I had to go to a physiotherapist and whatever not, but after that, what happened was when we had the opportunity to open up, to go and travel a little bit, right? I went to Kapas Island, right? And stayed there for like 3 months there in Marang, right? And so that's where I saw that opportunity, because I didn't, we weren't going to the office anyway, right? And I figured, why not just lock myself down on an island? And I gotta say that was amazing, because 3 months on an island, you can imagine right? There was a little families on the island, but you also felt times when you were like Gilligan and you were just like, just stuck on an island on yourself, right? And I guess the whole point why I'm sharing this is like it's perspective. I wouldn't have ever gotten the opportunity to spend 3 months on an island and still work, for that matter of fact. I was still going into the office every day, pretty much online, right? So I flipped the script in how I saw the pandemic in that sense, rather than it being a thing that limited me in not being able to go to the office. And the work that I'm doing for UNICEF right now, it really is. It's a bit unfortunate that we can't execute maybe 70-80% of what we actually want to do, and we're doing everything the 30% all stretching it online, right? Pretty much. But at the same time, we get to do it from home. It's a learning curve. No, but the expectations are smaller, of course, and people understand why you can't do that 70%, right? And I took that opportunity, as I said, and that's where I guess I flipped that script on how I saw it. And it's the same thing also with like right now, or even this journey where the last year I've learned a lot more about video editing, for instance, right? Like a whole lot more. I even started upping my gear. I got a bunch of other, like I got a GoPro and a 6400 and just different gear, and learned about it as well. And I guess I took that opportunity that we can't be going out, right? To like really nerd out for myself, like, like really pick up the skills that would be probably more useful in the next few years, right? In the next 5 to 10 years. And so I learned about that, right? It just gave me the opportunity to learn about post-production, right? And so I guess it really depends on how you want to look at things. So you can always look at things, not to sound cliche in that sense where it's like half empty or half full, but definitely, right, you can see things positively or negatively. It's really up to you. It's how you process your inside. Because whatever is happening outside, right, is happening, right? Whether you like it or not, whether it's ideal or not, it's happening, right? But what happens in you, I guess, like how you take it and how you process it and how you like conceive it in your mind, right, is all you, I guess, in that sense. And what that means to me, at least, is like I've built a sense of resilience, a sense of like wanting to just not let go, but at the same time know that, because we all want control, and I also want things to be kind of feeling like I'm in control. But I realize that as you kind of just in your mind, at least, you're like, okay, things will happen as it happens, right? And you just kind of like focus on what you think is important. Like for me right now, I wanted to build my set skills in the next 5 years. Because, right, I mean, we have cycles. My contract with UNICEF is actually ending soon, and they might renew or they might not, right? But the point is, I can't just wait and kind of just, wait for decisions and the world to kind of like just be, right? So you have that both perspectives. You know the world will just happen as it is, but you can just do what you can do for yourself and for your family and for the people around you, and that's all you can do, right? So, and not really just wallow on the shit that you can't right now. Because I actually the other day, not the other day, a few months ago, I went swimming anyway when I couldn't, and it was fine, whatever. But then, people are so strung out right now, right? I mean, I got like called out by one lady, and she go, "Oh, why are you swimming?" Right? Because I was the only one there, like nobody else is there, right? But yeah, I try not to kind of like fall in that trap of being too strung out in this situation, and instead, as I said, focus on seeing, oh great, I've got this opportunity now to do this, I guess, because of this situation.
Can I ask you, how did the book come about? Because I think you went through some difficult scenarios. I think your marriage was one. You faced some headaches, some obstacles that dragged you down a bit, and then out of this experience came the book. And the book is a wonderful self-help book, SOS. Can you tell us a bit more about what led to you getting the opportunity to tick this off your so-called bucket list, and what it means to you to put that book out?
Sure. Well, I guess it was called SOS, Surfing Out Stuff. There was a number of reasons. I think I wrote it at a time where I needed it for myself. I think it was kind of like first things first. I needed to reflect on a situation. I had just gotten divorced, as kind of thing, and so I guess the struggle is real for everyone in that sense, right? We all go through different things in our lifetime, and as people see me externally and they don't know my backstory, of course, in many ways, sometimes it looks pretty damn awesome, and it is in many ways as well, right? But it comes with like a whole series of like, yeah, turbulence and difficulties, right? It comes with that as well, and I also suffered a whole series of that in a lifetime, of course. And it's always been a dream of mine to actually write a book because I love reading as well, and that's something I appreciate as well. The our ability and thirst for knowledge in that sense, which gives us a greater appreciation of who we are, right? But yeah, I never had the fuel, I guess, and so I've had a series of lifetimes where I had great things. I lived a life where I was a chief marketing officer at a big company, right? And I've had work experiences working with like prime ministers and ministers as well. So kind of been up there in the ladder of like, I guess what you call achievement, right? But at the same time, you also have things that, people die, people disappoint you, people don't behave exactly the way your ideals are as well, and vice versa, right? And so inadvertently, I got into a lot of like issues as well in my lifetime, right? As much as the blessings as well, right? And so the book came about through that big adult experience, I guess. And I actually, I've always been a nature kind of guy, going out running, and I love trail running, and things like that, tracking and things like that. So one of the natural things for me, or I found, or I learned, I guess, in this lifetime, is the power of being alone for one, but being alone in nature. I think was something that I learned in my lifetime in different phases as well. It's not the first time that I kind of like felt like I wanted to chill, in a jungle, or by the beach, or on an island alone, right? I've always felt the value of that. And so I went and did that as well for a month, right? And what came was a clarity of what I wanted to do, which one of them was, fuck, I'm going to do this book, right? Because I need to write like who I am again. I need to find out who I am again. Because every time we feel pain or have a sense of loss, we also have a sense of loss of self. I realized that as well. And so I needed to find myself at that time. And so I wrote this book, right? The book was kind of like, it's a journal of my life, and it was and at the same time, because I studied psychology, and because I also had always an interest in things like philosophy or theology or social science, and just us and spirituality as well. And so I decided to write what I hope could help myself, right, in that journey of getting back to my own truth, I guess, because I was thinking, I think at that time you always feel like you're not yourself, or you're living a lie as well. And I had that sense where it looked like I had everything. I had like the big house, the beautiful family, and the brilliant career, right? But at the same time, people don't know what happens when you go back home, and whether things are good or not. And most of the time, these kind of things don't make sense. Like the reasons of why your unhappiness is, it never really makes sense, really. So the book came about as that process, kind of like, I started to be more comfortable with myself, started being more comfortable sharing about things, sharing about not just we always want to share about our awesome like success, but it's always more difficult to kind of like comfortably, and as well there's a fine line between kind of like compensating and boasting about your problems, right? And at the same time, just sincerely sharing about it, and kind of like not trying to be narcissistic about it, because there is that fine line, I believe, right? And so for me, this was that journey of being able to find that thread, a fine line, and where that balance essentially is. And so the book came, and so I got a great book deal after that. I mean, the journey of getting a book is a whole different story. That's a whole, like, how I actually reached out to some good friends at that time. I was at my lowest point of my life. I reached out to some good friends, people like Nitesh and Raja. These are amazing. I mean, these are friends of mine that I went there and I was at the lowest point, but I just shared what I believed in. And it's amazing how people can see. I mean, once that comes about, they could also ignore it as well, and a few people did as well before, and these are also other good friends as well. But you don't blame. It's just kind of like how the cosmic kind of order is supposed to happen. And then after that, it all kind of came together. And 2 years ago, it got published, and now it's out at most bookstores, basically all the main bookstores. So that's, I guess, how the book came about.
So congratulations on that. And it's fantastic that you used those negative experiences to birth a very positive outcome, and one that hopefully can help other people. I was sent a very, very good quote only yesterday by a very good friend of mine, a very wise man, a quote from Montesquieu that says, "If only we wanted to be happy, it would be easy. But we want to be happier than other people, which is difficult." And I think that comes across in social media so prevalent, which is, look how phenomenally well I'm doing in comparison to everyone around me, which also stems the worry of, hey, someone else is on a private jet and I'm not on a private jet. I'm a loser. But if they didn't see that photo, they wouldn't be cross-comparing themselves. Do you think that we're creating far too many obstacles for ourselves in our own minds that really are inconsequential?
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, it's both ways. Like you see it, like we always want to be happier than other people, as you said, right? And we have this comparison, but we also have, at the same time, we also have a psychosis of wanting to be better than someone else as well, right? Not only do we compare our happiness to someone else, we also have this destructive sense that, cool, I have more food than that person, like, haha, right? And it comes, that's where competition, I guess, there's a fine line again between being our human competitive nature, which helps us grow and also helps us kind of like be cooperative as well. And right, but we also have the whole, I'm the best as well, and unfortunately that also triggers other things as well. And when we're not the best, or we're not there compared to the rest, right, we feel like we're no one in that sense, right? So absolutely, we do create a lot of our own false beliefs as well. And the reason why so is, I think, society, I mean, again, it's a whole big with it's funny how we're in such amazing times right now. I can talk to you, from two different geographical locations. You could be in Timbuktu for all I care, and if you had internet, we could be doing exactly the same thing, right? And I've got all sorts of cool gear that I could only imagine and dream of before, right? But at the same time, having all this, we're also people that has all sorts of like psychological neurosis and emotional issues and existential issues, and now even more so polarized world, right? It feels like every time you go on social media or open up a show or whatever it is, right, it's either a polarizing race, right, or someone calling out something, or someone feeling woke, or a sexual orientation and genders or values are kind of either pushed one way or another, right? I mean, we're so kind of like that kind of situation right now, right? And so for me, I that's why I think, going back to what I said about going back to nature, I think for me it's really important, right? For me, I think I've had the opportunities to kind of like go to places where, whether it's jungles, forest, or islands or highlands, right? And I find actually, and I've had that experience 3 months in Kapas and Marang, right? That's my most recent experience. And I'm very convinced, actually, living this whole urban life. I'm a city boy, and I grew up in PJ, right? I lived in Ampang, right? I went to Zouk, right? And so I did all these kind of things, right? But I'm also convinced now that we've not entirely got it right, this whole urban living, to be honest with you. Right. I think it's not to say that we shouldn't have urban areas or cities, for sure, right? That's not what I'm saying. But at the same time, we've not got it right. I feel I've had that experience living in many different experiences while living in out of town. And I'm not at all in any way deprived of modern kind of things. I still go online. I still have like cool stuff, right? I have friends who have drones there. I've got mates who have pickup trucks up in Marang. Right? I mean, these are not deprived of modern amenities, right? But life, as far as like relationships, right? The ability to like run around in out of town, like in Marang and Kapas, even though it was lockdown, I could still run around a lot, right? I could still kind of like run around. And that was a huge difference. And even how people related to each other, they were all socially distancing and had all the SOPs, but it didn't feel like, we were in this like Gestapo state, like kind of thing, right? Which we do right now. It feels like we're in like some global Gestapo state kind of thing. But there, no, right? And so that's where, going back to nature, I think it's really important if we can kind of detach ourselves in many ways to the worldly creations that we've created, and the emphasis that we've put on our minds and our physical wants and physical needs, and right, and we, our physical happiness, I think, is the things that we've been pushing and trying to get as well, because you can get as much gear or as much cars or as much whatever it is that rocks your boat, right? But there will be a time when after a while you're like, okay, now what? Or there could also be situations where you have all that, but you have one thing where it's just the most miserable thing in your life, like you can't taste food, or you have a physical thing about your nose, and something just sticks in your nose, but you have everything, right? But you can't really even enjoy it, right? So our physical thing, I think, is something that when we go to nature, we realize, oh wow, that what you saw, the sunset, or the river that you just swam in, or the air that you just breathed, right? Or like the silence of the hour, even as you were just chilling, right? And not being consumed about all the things that you don't have. And that's the thing, you don't really, at that moment of times, usually you don't think about what you don't have. You really go like, wow, what is this that I'm experiencing? What is this air? What is this sight? What is this smell? And so, yeah, as much as I love being in city as well, I think we do need a balance. I always advocate for not just hugging trees and loving nature in that sense, but I absolutely advocate for your own health, for your own mental health, for your own spiritual health, right? For your own spiritual being, having a better relationship with nature, right? Because one of the things I learned from a very good friend of mine, he was a general in the army, and he actually owned a piece of land behind the zoo, like a campsite, a huge ass campsite. And he's super Mr. Nature guy, he shared, when I stayed in the jungle for a month, I asked him, so what should I consider in this month that I stay here, or whatever amount of time that I'm going to stay here? He was like, well, just get back your relationship with nature and listen, right? Just listen again, right? We've all stopped listening. We all just want to talk and say and want so much. So many words are going in our heads. So many noises are happening in our minds. And so, yeah, that's kind of like, it reflected on all that. And the book kind of came on that. This is the thing, a lot of amazing things come from times when you just decide to let go and reconnect with nature and kind of like find your truth. And it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of like courage, in a sense where like that sometimes the easiest thing to do is hate. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is kind of like blame, right? Rather than take responsibility and embrace and kind of just see it as a learning curve as well, and something of a blessing. And that's really difficult sometimes, especially when something hurts like hell, right? And especially when something hurts like hell, it's like hard to see how is that a blessing, right? But it is as well. And I've kind of like seen how that plays out.
First and foremost, Zhariff, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us and give us so many gems to go off and think about and learn from. And also we can learn more by going and looking at the book, and I recommend people do. My last question for you would be 2020 behind us, and as we come out of MCO and hopefully after Chinese New Year, we will be back to getting into a degree of new normal again. What's on your to-do list for 2021?
Oh, I've already got a whole lot. I also took the opportunity in this lockdown period to see it as a planning stage, because we can't do anything else except for plan, right? And so in that sense, also on the planning stage, I've kind of put some things together. I'm looking forward to go back to Marang and Kapas Island in Terengganu, because I'm setting up, I got myself a bunch of partners there, and we got ourselves a piece of land there. And we're going to do a marine conservation center there.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I'm convinced that, and I want to live by the ocean for a while. I don't know how long or how long this phase is going to be, but the intention at least is I'm going to go back to Marang and Kapas Island and set up a nice little conservation center initiative there as well. Hopefully work still continue, whatever that work is, whether it's continuing with UNICEF or with another adventure, whatever that might be. But I believe that most things are going to be done online anyway. So that's where I actually see that as a blessing. It's kind of cool that, since people don't expect you to come into the office, why not? I park myself somewhere that's awesome and that can kind of like, that I wouldn't have opportunity in other times, right? So that's once that opens, I'm gonna find get back there hopefully. But besides that, it's really continuing the growth. I have a second book that I'm writing as well. So the first book you can find right now. You can't go to NPH much, I think, but you can go to NPH online. So if you go to NPH online, my book should be there as well. But if not, it's in Kinikunuyan, whatever not, right? Next book as well. It's actually going to be a translation. I think I've got a really cool Malay book. It's a really old book that I'd like to translate it to English as well. Because one thing I realized after writing my first book or publishing my first book is I learned that I have a lot more to learn. So I'm hoping to kind of like translate the book and learn more techniques and and grow more, I guess. Just continuing life. I mean, we don't need to share what other stuff as well, but I have hurdles to overcome as well. Those hurdles just, if the time comes and it fixes as well, it'll fix. With this COVID thing, a lot of things kind of like are put on hold, right? Whether they're legal matters, whether they're emotional matters, whether they're physical, some things are, but it's okay, right now. So I look forward actually to the months to come as well and things being better. But I'm fully aware that it's still going to be, thing is, next 2 years, we have to at least prepare for the next 2 years to kind of be more or less the same in regards to like the movement restrictions, I think specifically, right? And also, of course, work as well. How do you think about like what do you do? And a lot of people are out of jobs as well. And I've been there as well, not having a job as well. But like for me, as I said, I think it's important for me to prepare myself in times like these. And so I'm upping my game a little bit, as I said, buying a little bit more gear, learning a little bit more skills, and building more relationships as well, right? And just trying to cope with things, man. I think we all, I'm sure you've done well as well putting this together. I think it's a good job what you guys are doing as well. And hope to see more of this.
Well, we're just trying, and we're aiming to communicate even from afar, even if you can't leave your room, just trying to stay in touch. But whatever you do in 21, I'm going to keep an eye on, because it's sure going to motivate me to keep moving forward. It's very easy to become stagnant in times like this, but you're a great motivator, a great inspiration, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to chat to us. And there's so many gems within this last half an hour that people can take away and think about. And as you say, switch off the phone for a while. Don't allow distractions and voices into your head that are unnecessary for a short period of time. Just think about what is potential rather than what you can't do, because it's very easy to be negative and then complain later that you haven't achieved anything, when even a very small gesture can allow you to feel some value in the use of time, because it's literally just time. You just wake up in the morning, you go to sleep. How do you fill that time in between? And yes, maybe I can't get on a plane and go scuba diving, but I can read a book, or I can learn a language, or I can learn an instrument. And so fingers crossed people will take inspiration from that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I found my outlet being music as well, and now actually videos as well. And it's just amazing. I found that ability to express, and that actually helps you cope, and that kind of also helps you give you clarity as well, and enables you to not feel like you're lost, right? So that's something I look forward to as well, to continue doing music as well. You can check me out on Spotify, actually. I've got my stuff on Spotify. Yeah, mostly hip hop and trip hop kind of like genre, I think. Just kind of continuing on doing that. Actually, the dream after this is the whole reason why I actually did music as well was to play in festivals. It's nothing to do with career, money, music. Like, I don't, and I'm not delusional to feel that I'm not a Joe Flizzo level or whatever it is, but I love music and I love creating and I love doing things and I love performing, right? And festivals is something I look forward to as we start kind of figuring that out, because man, we gotta, it's a social need, right? Events. And and I've obviously seen the value, and my whole life as well, the stuff that I do is all about events and building communities. So I look forward for us to continue building communities, hopefully more in human form rather than digital heads.
Well, whatever you do, Zhariff, we wish you the best of luck. Thank you again. We can't wait to see you in the flesh. And please take care and stay safe.
You too, and hope to catch you as well soon in person. And invitation to come by as well when we are open for a conservation center in Marang. Please be my special guest at our center.
We'd be flattered and humbled. Thank you so much, Zhariff.
Cool. Cheers.
Take care.